Okay, so check this out. It was this was something that I've been wanting to learn of myself. I don't do a lot of I don't do any slow pitch fishing, slow pitch jigging. And there's a lot of differences in regards to what you do, what you've seen for the bluefin tuna fishery versus slow pitch. And I've long believed that slow pitch catches a wider variety of species than that of the speed jigging does. But the speed jigging gives you the Facebook picture, profile picture of that big fish. Having said that, I know that the vast majority, not the vast majority, but the majority of anglers in Southern California are indeed sport boat fishermen. So I asked James, I said, hey, maybe can you try to help me out? I've got a list of a bunch of different questions that I like answered. And so he said that maybe we can do this in front of a crowd at the hall show, because I'm sure that everybody is seeing what they've been doing on social media and on YouTube, as well as on their own personal side of fishing, and wanting to kind of get the gist of what's going on. And at the same time, I have a whole list of questions that I know that you guys as fishermen would be interested in finding out. There's some questions I'll be honest with you, they're really ridiculous. But if you've been to my other seminars, I get really detailed, and I want to know the finest little things just to make it work for me. And so here's my questions, these. I do these two versions of jig fishing: yo-yo jig fishing and the vertical speed fishing. What are the differences?
You'll see that you'll see that there's these setups are lighter, a slow pitch, and they're able to work a jig. You get really good movement out of your jig, whether it be small jigs or the heavier jigs. Compared to,
I guess
to the yo-yo, like it's a lot more sensitive. You could feel your jig swimming. You can feel the motion. You feel like even with a fish, it's fighting on the jig. You can feel every little tick. It's very sensitive, and it works really well.
Would you say that the importance of the rod? Does the rod have that much more to put? Can I use this rod, a 50-pound stick? Would I be as effective slow pitch jigging with this setup as I would with one of yours?
I would say could, but you probably won't get the movements that you want out of a jig.
Because that looks pretty soft.
Yeah.
So if I was to try to move the jig with this rod here to come up, I'd probably be okay, but I'd be in trouble coming down with it.
Yeah. And then this way too, with the lighter setups, you're fishing light braid, so the jig's gonna be able to drop a lot quicker than you would fishing a heavier setup.
Is it that much more different from what we've been doing with the bluefin?
Yeah, for the slow pitch, we're trying to mimic a fish that's or a bait that's dying or slowly moving, compared to speed jigging, since we're working the jig really fast to try to get that any fish to attack.
Would you say then that this would be more in tune to making it look more like a fleeting bait versus that of a dying bait? So very different, obviously, here, guys. The tackle, as you can see, you guys don't even use there's a little nubbin as a foregrip on there.
Right? Very, very minimal, because they want it as light as possible.
So when we talk about the sport boat aspect of it, I'm always curious because I see different lengths, different ratings. If I was to go, if these guys, myself, they wanted to come on a sport boat with me, what would be the two line ratings we would be looking at that we need for our city?
So a lot of these rods, they're the length of these rods are usually from 6 feet to about 6 feet, and usually with the jig sizes that we like to use for like our local island fishing, like calico bass, sand bass structure fishing, we'll fish the lighter stuff. So it'll be 30-pound braid with like 30-pound top shot, 40-pound top shot if you're fishing structure. And usually the jig sizes range from anywhere between 40 to 100 grams. Is ideal for like sand bass fishing. Um,
Which
caliber
rod
bass.
is that?
That would be
Which braid?
that would be something to this. So this right here, is 6'4" and it's rated to fish jigs from 80 to 180 grams.
Do those things carry a PE line rating as well?
Yes, they do.
So what's the PE line
So
rating?
this one's PE 0.8 to 1.5. So you're looking at like 10-pound braid to about 20 to 25-pound braid.
So 6, you're like the taller rods. You prefer the taller rods on the Sportboat, so 6'4" to 6'8".
Usually a 6'3" to 6'8".
6'3" to 6'8". And as far as the lure ratings, I guess we pay more attention to lure ratings than we would the line ratings, because I don't even know what a 0.5 looks like.
Yeah.
So lure rating, what's the lure rating on that one?
This one's 80 to 180.
80 to 180 grams. Can you effectively work lighter jigs than 80 on this?
Yes, you can. You can work 40-gram jigs. But you can even fish a little bit heavier too. So you could go beyond the rod rating. It's just working the jig. It's gonna be a little different if you're fishing a heavier jig on a lighter setup. But usually you stay within the range. It works really well.
So this one is a 80 to what?
80 to 180.
80 to 180.
Yeah.
So that'd be the first setup.
Yeah, this
Would
one would be a
my lighter setup.
light fishing shallows. You're fishing like, whatever, 40 to 200 feet. Yeah, you could get away with something like this. And you could target most species. Halibut, slow-pitch jigging, whitefish, sheephead, rockfish. It's a really fun setup and it works. The next setup is something that we use more regularly. With this setup, you could fish deeper. You could fish the 400 to 500 feet, even up to like 600. You could get away with fishing something like this. And this rod right here is rated 120 grams to 300 grams. And generally, I find myself fishing a lot more if I'm fishing like in that like 200, like 180 to like 300 feet. I use this more than I use any other setup. This one right here, you're fishing 30 to 40-pound braid, but we'll say 30 pounds. You could get a lot of line out of it on it, and you can fish jigs from 120 to 300 grams. So a lot of times, when I'm slow pitch jigging deeper waters, I tend to fish around like 200 grams to 300 gram jigs if I'm fishing really deep. You could also fish this for like your smaller pelagics. It's got good backbone and a lot of drag from your reel. So a lot of times too, when you're fighting fish with these slow pitch setups, you're not necessarily putting a bend in the rod. With a heavier jigging slow pitch setup, you can't put a bend in the rod. But with more traditional, you're not really putting a bend in the rod.
Is that why you guys don't have the longer board grip? So
Yeah.
it's gonna be hard to put that on the rail for a 200-pounder, right?
I wouldn't be using this one for like a 200-pound fish for sure. But for your yellowtail, things like that.
Let's see how these things fit.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I don't play around enough with tap, but this is that photo. You would think that it's a fairly lighter action, but if you take a look, what the rod is really designed to do, it's designed to activate jigs. Number one, priority. Okay, you got to get fit first before you worry about anything else.
Yeah, and a lot of the fight when you're on like a yellow, you're basically pointing the rod at the fish. You're not really putting a bend in the rod. You could put a slight bend, but then you're using the drag pressure from your reel to fight the fish. And you'll notice when you do that, the fish tends to not fight back as hard too, as if you were to fish with the bend in the rod. You're putting more pressure on the fish. Yellows, they'll come up faster. You don't put as much pressure on that.
You know, there was a guy on stage here at 2 p.m. talking about that. Shameless plug, shameless plug. I'm just kidding.
And then
Question. Here's one. I walk by. Y'all got all these fancy reels. You got, look, this Oldsmobile. You got a bunch of different types. And I see you having a different variety of them. You have what looks to be a brand of reel I'm not familiar with. And you have something that I've been fishing with that size probably since I was a young.
oh yeah.
So do we need these? I mean, is it an absolute necessity? I guess my point is, can we get away with reels that are coming off of the shelf that a tackle retailer has so that they'd have fun slow pitch jigging?
Yeah. So for your shallow stuff, you could get away with fishing slow pitch jigging with bait casting reels. You know, like right here, I have a Calcutta 300. It has a little jiggy handle that I modified it with. But yeah, for the shallows, you'll be able to basically catch anything up to like yellowtail. You know,
What Alexa, we're like,
yeah,
Alexa
Alexa 300, Ferrado 300, even like the 400 size. Yeah, you could get away with fishing those. Shimano makes like the Trinidad 14A, which is a really popular size because it's very small, compact, and narrow. And another popular reel that if you're fishing a little bit heavier or deeper and you need that line capacity, something like a Trinidad 16 narrow will be ideal. That way you can get a lot of line capacity as well as you have the power, the reel to battle the fish with.
I think there's a lot of one of the concerns that a lot of people have because those specialty jigging reels, number one, is they are truly and not maybe a one-trick pony. So if you can if you tie into one of those, it's really all it does. And I like a lot of the anglers like to be able to transfer that reel from one different technique and one style to another. But having said that, there has to be advantages to the jigging reels versus the boutique jigging reels. And maybe you can tell us what those advantages are and why somebody like you who's been doing it for so long gravitates more towards those specific type of jigging reels.
Yeah, so for like the higher end jigging reels, you're gonna notice like a lot of the reels are gonna be narrow. That way, as you're jigging, you're not necessarily having to guide the line back, but it's narrow and it comes with a longer handle for that torque that you need to gain line. And a lot of the specialized reels they'll come with a power handle as well as the reel being narrow. They have really good
bigger than the reel.
They have really good drags too. A lot of them they have anywhere between like 25 to even up to like 60 to 80 pound drag, depending on the manufacturer. But that's, for most part, when you're fishing like local, fishing the island, yeah, you don't need that.
One thing I notice about the jigging reels, and maybe you can tell me about this, but when you invest in one of these, I noticed that the infinite anti-reverse, it's a really quick lock. Whereas even some of the higher end reels on the market now with star drives and make casters, there's still a little bit of slop. Would you say that having that is an advantage to having one of these reels, and that it does make things a lot more efficient as opposed to having that handle slop going back every time you're working the big?
Yeah, that part,
this one here stops on a dime, right?
Yeah, like usually the higher end stuff, it's very smooth and yeah, there's no play, there's no give. You could whenever you wanna wind, you can. You can just try to power through. Yeah, with a lot of the more specialized jig.
I understand. It's my understanding that line diameter plays a critical role here. We can't get super, super thick and get all crazy with the heavier pound test and whatnot. How important is it? I mean, are you filling your reels with like 2 pound braided line, or what would be the ideal setup? Do we need heavier pound tests? Then we get away with the lighter ones? Is it probably better to use a lighter diameter stuff, or lower diameter stuff?
Yeah, so generally what we like to slow pitch with is 30-pound braid. You could get away with 40-pound braid if you're fishing a more structured, maybe yeah, if you're fishing more structured, you could go up to 40, but most of the time 30 pound is hard to break. 30-pound braid's hard to break. Uh Benny Ortiz from Shimano, he says 30-pound break at like 50, and it breaks way over what it says, what it's the spec.
30 to 40 pound braid is what you like. Okay.
30-40 pound braid.
Do you think that the braided line, the diameter of it, has an effect on the jig itself?
It actually allows for your jig to sink out much quicker. So when you're fishing 600 feet, 700 feet, and you need to get down there quick, yeah, with the thinner diameter braid, you can get down really fast. Like when I'm fishing 500 feet, 400 feet, using 200, getting away with fishing 200-gram jigs, you'll, I can get down really fast using a 30-pound braid and fishing lighter jig.
So less drag on the
Less
jig.
drag.
Okay. Light stuff. So what's the appropriate line setup? We talked about the braided line, 30 and 40 pound. Now what do we do about the leader? Obviously, you're not using a 300-pound bite leader connected to a big treble, right?
No, we're fishing anywhere from 20 to 25 feet of top shot, usually 30 to 40 pound. It's pretty much sufficient for most species.
In 10 minutes, we will have Kevin Braden speaking in an accurate fishing technique stage. And Kyle Brinker, Kyle Vasily.
For my
And on the main
stuff, I tend
stage,
to fish
we have Guy James speaking.
then because of the abrasion resistance that I need if I'm fishing structure. If I'm fishing like Cortez Bank, Tanner Bank, the yellows over there, they'll run you right into the rocks. So you gotta have that.
Okay. Yeah. So 30 to 40 pound braid is what you like to fill your reels like. And then, of course, the capacity of that would all depend on where you're fishing, right? And you like 20 to 25 feet of 30 to 40 pound fluoro. That's what you've been doing. Cool. Yeah. All right. Okay. Here's the deal. Speed jigging. You have your KB jigs, you have all the jigs that everybody's familiar with of yours. Do they do anything different? What does a slow pitch do that is different from those?
So traditionally, you're gonna have jigs that have a lot more flutter to them.
You brought a couple on stage. Can you show them around?
I brought a different ones, but I got them at the.
Yep.
So these right here are different ones. Like this one's leaf style sink, so sinks out more slowly, so it's gonna fall like this and pull down as it's sinking. Like this one right here, it's more like a torpedo style shape, but it's smaller. This one has a more erratic action. So yeah, there's different profiles for slow pitch jigs. There's pencil style, really long, slender ones that work really well. And then there's something similar like to the flat ball that has a lot more flutter to it.
It was my next question. For all of us who have been fishing bluefins since that whoever discovered fishing them and at night or whatever the case may be since 2016 or so, can we use the hundreds of flat balls that we have in our boxes for this purpose?
That's what that jig was made for. Slow pitch.
Now you don't put all the swivels and the 15 hooks on the flat ball,
Why not?
So we were talking about rigging. You're still how do you rig a hook on top, bottom, swivels, trebles, assist hooks? What do you guys do?
So for the longer profile jigs, what we like to do is run one on top, one on bottom. That way, you could hook a couple of fish on one jig. I've done that numerous times where fishing a longer jig, one hook on each end. I've got double reds, double links. Still waiting to try to get double yellowtail on one. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but we'll fish one on top, one on bottom. A lot more of the smaller profile that have more flutter to it. You can go twins on the bottom, and then in Japan, I know that they fish twins on top, twins on bottom, but here we have regulations, so you can't fish no more than 2 hooks if you're fishing rockfish. So you gotta, choose whether you're gonna go twins on the bottom, twins on top, or one on top or one on bottom. If you're fishing pelagics, yellows, you could fish a couple more extra hooks, So you can have 2 on top, 2 on bottom, but most of the time it's just either twins or one on top. And then yeah, there's different shapes of jigs. There's the ones that are flat that have more flutter, wider. There's just a bunch of different ones to try, and once you figure it out, the action, how the fish want to bite the jig, is where it can set you apart from everyone else.
So just so we're clear, when somebody asks you, "Hey man, can you recommend a slow pitch setup for bluefin?" There is no such thing. Right? I mean, you're not going to be pushing this type of setup.
I wouldn't push this one, but you could get it done. There's guys from Johnny Jigs, Florida. They did a couple of charters out here. They do 1 charter a year. Man, they've done it. They've done it where they've got big bluefin up to 180 on slow pitch. It's crazy but they got it done.
I guess
it took them a long while.
There is a fine line in hold the two up together. There is a fine line in regards to how the rods are built, the actions to them, the line ratings, as well as their ability to handle the types of drags that are needed for larger fish. So this wouldn't necessarily be, you wouldn't wholeheartedly suggest to people that are just getting into it that they could go ahead and try to attack a giant bluefin with a slow fish, right?
Yeah, because some of the captains were upset with the slope. People hooking up slow bluefin using slow pitch setups. It took way too long.
Yeah. And so now you mentioned, I was asking earlier though, but you said something about fishing in structure. You don't need a heavy pipe leader. You don't use a wire leader or anything like that. Get straight tied to the jig.
Straight tie. Actually, what we like to do is run it to your main line to either a swivel or a solid ring connected with a split ring. That way, you can swap out jigs very easily using a split ring pliers, and that will it's fast, real fast for switching jigs. So with the swivel, it actually allows the jig to flutter a little bit more than it would with solid ring.
So on each one of your jigs, would it be then appropriate if I was being as typical me, which is lazy? If every one of my jigs had a split ring on it, and I just had my line tied to a swivel.
Hurry ahead of go to the line building stage. They are on the new free battery roll at 12 o'clock.
Is there any special consideration that we need to know about in regards to deploying one of these setups on a sport boat? Is there any troubleshooting that you have seen over the last couple of years? Anything that will make us not necessarily be looked at in a weird way by a film?
When I first started slow pitch jigging on Sportboat, the deckhand and crew members were like, shouldn't be using this. But over the years, they've been more accepting of it. They've seen it a lot more. There's definitely boats out there now that are, teaching their customers, teaching anglers to try it. I know toward the end of last year, Dana Wharf, there was a couple of boats that were starting to do that a little bit more. and they were doing well with the rockfish and some of the shallow water stuff. Yeah, we're cool with that. So it's more accepting than it was before. Before you used to get the eye like, no, you're not using that. But now it's okay, you know. But there are some concerns that people may have is, you know, when you're fishing the bow or you're fishing boats that are sit a little higher up the water, off the water, that with the shorter rod, it might be a little bit tricky to get around. So that's where, you know, over the years, like I've learned to like be able to free spool when I get around to the corners and things like that. But just make certain adjustments, like backing off the drag a little bit. That plays a big part in getting around, especially when you're hooked up to a bigger fish. Yeah. You got yellow fingers. Yeah, dude. Last year on the Fury, I landed one yellow that went over 30 pounds on a slow pitch. It bit uh, in the middle column. I was working the jig slowly, and I felt that little effect, and then boom, it just bit, took off running, and yeah, I got that one up pretty fast.
If we backed off the drag on that and I held on to your rig there, you show us the motion that we go through that your slope is thing. Yeah. Drop. This would be on the drop is just yeah, you're getting guys on.
So a lot of times when you're working the jig, it basically went up, letting it fall back down, wind, and the same thing. Just letting it fall back down, wind up slowly. And then there's ways too where uh to get the jig to move around. What you could do is little quarter frames, half frames, full frames. Just you can mix that up, and then that'll get the jig dancing, moving around. Just using quarter frames, half frames, full frames. Yeah, not pumping a lot. You're gonna let the rod tip just do it. Yeah. Show us that. So show us the whole ball. Yeah. There you go. You really you want to obviously you don't want any resistance on your end. You're trying to you want to stay in contact, but there's a fine line between hammering down on the spool and just okay. So but then it's figuring out the cadence. You know, fish respond differently all the time. Yeah, they sometimes they really slow off the bottom. They'll attack it. Sometimes higher up the water column, so you working it really slow up. Sometimes too, on the last year on my 3 day, I figured it out that at night the yellowtail at Cortez, they wanted it right off the bottom. So I was slowly lifting and I felt the little whining. So I ended up with like I think 3 yellows that night. And then during the day, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try working it slow. I wasn't getting bit. Captain's like, oh, they're coming through still. I was like, okay, let me try this. Work, worked it faster off the bottom. And next thing you know, yeah, I got bit. Ended up with 16 yellows. 16.
So it's not really there's nothing set in stone. Right, I always say that, like I talked to, in my seminars. I always say, one of the interesting about fishermen is that if it's working, they tend to stop. Right, so if it's working, right, there's no rule book that says you need to work your style jig in a specific way. Just experiment.
Yeah, a lot of trying out different jigs. A lot of trying out different speeds, cadences, and once you figure it out, though, it's game on. There's times at Channel Islands, I can't get bit, and then I figure I figured it out at the end of the trip, which was like way too late. That all I had to do was add a little teaser to my system, the little squid teaser, and I was getting more bites out of it. But then by that time it was already late. But I figured it out though. Yeah, so just trying different. I say have a good assortment of jigs, especially if you're, fishing shallow or deep. Have a good assortment. Definitely anywhere from like 40 grams all the way up to 250 to 300 grams. You're gonna find yourself using a lot more of that 60 to 100 gram, especially locally. Yeah.
We'll open it up. Does anybody have questions for James in regards to your slow pitch jigging? If not, we'll make room for the 5 p.m. seminar. That'll be someone else who's not here. I'm here. Sorry, guys. I know that the seminar. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, we'll make room for the Get Off Nature. But we will be back. We will be James will be at the Bob Sands tackle booth. Sorry, brother. The seminar schedule got all weird, but we'll be back at the Bob Sands tackle area to answer any of your questions in regards to slow pitch jigging. Or James will be there. His brother is there. They've got a full assortment of jigs that they make in the West Coast Jiggers lineup. And as you can see, it's definitely something. I would say that if you had asked Sportboat captain several years ago if this is something that they would want to add to their arsenal, they would recommend that people add to their arsenals, a lot of them would kind of be like, well, you don't really need it. These days, we're starting to hear a different story. I guess it all depends on who you talk to. But thank you guys very much for coming out. Thank you for supporting the Hall Show. And this gentleman here has got a seminar coming up, and stick around for that. We're all here in support of the industry, so let's do this.